Welcome to the Butler Gallery and happy Pride. Today's Pride Day across the land. We have a special event for you today. My name is Alan Kerwin. I'm the Learning and Public Engagement Curator at the Gallery and delighted to put on a series of events and shows to mark Pride Month for June this year at the Gallery. The event we have today is a special monologue. We go back to the late 19th century with Oscar Wilde and his De Profundis, a series of letters written by him in the latter years of his internment at Reading Jail. And of course, they're often seen as a love letter, tragic in many ways, bitter in other ways, to his lover or ex-lover at that point, Lord Alfred Douglas. And to do the monologue and the reading, we are delighted to be joined today by Mags Whiteley from the Barnowl Players. Many of you will know the Barnowl Players, connected to Barnstorm Theatre, which is next door to here us at the Butler Gallery. And Mags has taken on the role, and in a gender-shifting role for Oscar Wilde, to do the performance for us today. And I'm delighted to introduce her to you now and let her take the stage. Thank you.
Thanks, Alan. "1896, Her Majesty's Prison, Reading. Dear Bosie, after long and fruitless waiting, I have determined to write to you myself, as much for your sake as for mine, as I would not like to think that I had passed through 2 long years of imprisonment without ever having received a single line from you, or any news or message even, except such as gave me pain. Our ill-fated and most lamentable friendship has ended in ruin and public infamy for me. Yet, the memory of our ancient affection is often with me, and the thought that loathing, bitterness, and contempt should forever take that place in my heart once held by love is very sad to me. And you yourself will, I think, feel in your heart that to write to me as I lie in the loneliness of prison life is better than to publish my letters without my permission or to dedicate poems to me unasked. Though the world will know nothing of whatever words of grief or passion, of remorse or indifference you may choose to send as your answer or your appeal. But most of all, I blame myself for the entire ethical degradation I allowed you to bring on me. The basis of character is willpower, and my willpower became absolutely subject to yours. It sounds a grotesque thing to say, but it is nonetheless true. Those incessant scenes that seemed to be almost physically necessary to you, and in which your mind and body grew distorted and you became a thing as terrible to look at as to listen to. That dreadful mania you inherited from your father, the mania for writing revolting and loathsome letters. Your entire lack of control over emotions, as displayed in your long, resentful moods of sullen silence, no less than in the sudden fits of almost epileptic rage. All these things in reference to which one of my letters to you, left by you lying at the Savoy or some other hotel, and so produced in court by your father's counsel, contained an entreaty not devoid of pathos, had you at that time been able to recognize pathos, either in its elements or its expression. These, I say, were the origin and causes of my fatal yielding to you in your daily increasing demands. You wore one out. It was the triumph of the smaller over the bigger nature. It was the case of the tyranny of the weak over the strong, where I described somewhere in one of my plays as the only tyranny that lasts. And it was inevitable. In every relation of life with others, one has to find some moyen de vivre. In your case, one had either to give up to you or give you up. There was no alternative. Through deep, if misplaced affection for you, through great pity for your defects of temper and temperament, through my own proverbial good nature and Celtic laziness, through an artistic aversion to coarse scenes and ugly words, through that incapacity to bear resentment of any kind which at that time characterized me, through my dislike of seeing life made bitter and uncomely by what to me, with my eyes really fixed on other things, seemed to be mere trifles, too petty for more than a moment's thought or interest. Through these reasons, simple as they may sound, I gave up to you always. As a natural result, your claims, your efforts at domination, your exactions grew more and more unreasonable. Your meanest motive, your lowest appetite, your most common passion became to you the laws by which the lives of others were to be guided always, and to which, if necessary, they were to be without scruple sacrificed. Knowing that by making a scene you could always have your way, it was but natural that you should proceed, almost unconsciously, I have no doubt, to every excess of vulgar violence. At the end, you did not know to what goal you were hurrying, and on what aim in view. Having made your own of my genius, my willpower, and my fortune, you required, in the blindness of an inexhaustible greed, my entire existence. You took it. At the one supremely and tragically critical moment of all my life, just before my lamentable step of beginning my absurd action, on the one side there was your father attacking me with hideous card left at my club, and on the other side there was you attacking me with no less loathsome letters. The letter I received from you on the morning of the day I let you take me down to the police court to apply for that ridiculous warrant for your father's arrest was one of the worst you ever wrote, and for the most shameful reason. Between you both, I lost my head. My judgment forsook me. Terror took its place. I saw no possible escape, I may say frankly, from either of you. Blindly, I staggered as an ox into the shambles. I had made a gigantic psychological error. I had always thought that my giving up to you in small things meant nothing, that when a great moment arrived, I could reassert my willpower in its natural superiority. It was not so. At that great moment, my willpower completely failed me. In life, there is no small or great thing. All things are of equal value and equal size. You send me a very nice poem of the undergraduate school of verse for my approval. I reply by a letter of fantastic literary conceits. I compare you to Hylas or Hyacinth, Jonquil or Narcisse, or someone who the great god of poetry favored and honored with his love. The letter is like a passage from a Shakespeare sonnet, transposed to a minor key. It can only be understood by those who have read the Symposium of Plato or caught the spirit of a certain grave mood made beautiful for us in Greek marble. It was, let me say frankly, the sort of letter I would, in a happy, if willful moment, have written to any graceful young man of either university who had sent me a poem of his own making, certain that he would have sufficient wit or culture to interpret rightly its fantastic phrases. Look at the history of that letter. It passes from you into the hands of a loathsome companion, from him to a gang of blackmailers. Copies of it are sent about London to my friends and to the manager of the theatre where my work is being performed. Every construction but the right one is put on it. Society is thrilled with the absurd rumours that I have had to pay a huge sum of money for having written an infamous letter to you. This forms the basis of your father's worst attack. I produce the letter myself in court to show what it really is. It is denounced by your father's counsel as a revolting and insidious attempt to corrupt innocence. Ultimately, it forms part of a criminal charge. The Crown takes it up. The judge sums up on it with little learning and much morality. I go to prison for it at last. That is the result of writing you a charming letter. There is, I know, one answer to all that I have said to you, and that is that you loved me. That all through those 2.5 years during which the fates were weaving into one scarlet pattern the threads of our divided lives, you really loved me. Yes, I know you did. No matter what your conduct to me was, I always felt that at heart you really did love me. Though I saw quite clearly that my position in the world of art, the interest my personality had always excited, my money, the luxury in which I lived, the 1,001 things that went to make up a life so charming and so wonderfully improbable as mine was, were, each and all of them, elements that fascinated you and made you cling to me. Yet besides all this, there was something more, some strange attraction for you. You loved me far better than you loved anybody else. But you, like myself, have had a terrible tragedy in your life, the one of an entirely opposite character to mine. Do you want to learn what it was? It was this. In you, hate was always stronger than love. Your hatred of your father was of such stature that it entirely outstripped, o'erthrew, and overshadowed your love of me. There was no struggle between them at all, or but little. Of such dimensions was your hatred, and of such monstrous growth. You did not realize that there is no room for both passions in the same soul. They cannot live together in that fair carven house. Love is fed by the imagination, by which we become wiser than we know, better than we feel, nobler than we are, by which we can see life as a whole, by which alone we can understand others in their real as in their ideal relations. Only what is fine and finely conceived can feed love, but anything can feed hate. There was not a glass of champagne you drank, not a rich dish you ate of in all those years that did not feed your hate and make it fat. So to gratify it, you gambled with my life as you gambled with my money, carelessly, recklessly, indifferent to the consequence. If you lost, the loss would not, you fancied, be yours. If you won, yours you knew would be the exaltation and the advantages of victory. You see that I have to write your life to you, and you have to realize it. We have known each other now for more than 4 years. Half of that time we have been together. The other half I have had to spend in prison as a result of our friendship. Where you will receive this letter, if indeed it ever reaches you, I don't know. Paris, Rome, Naples, Venice, some beautiful city on sea or river, I have no doubt holds you. You are surrounded, if not with all the useless luxury you had with me, at any rate with everything that is pleasurable to eye, ear, and taste. Life is quite lovely to you, and yet, if you are wise and wish to find life much lovelier still, and in a different manner, you will let the reading of this terrible letter, for such I know it is, prove to you as important a crisis and turning point of your life as the writing of it is to me. Your pale face used to flush with wine and pleasure. If, as you read what is here written, it from time to time becomes scorched, as though by a furnace blast with shame, it will be all the better for you. The supreme vice is shallowness. Whatever is realized is right. You came to me to learn the pleasure of life and the pleasure of art. Perhaps I am chosen to teach you something much more wonderful, the meaning of sorrow and its beauty. Your affectionate friend, Oscar Wilde. Thank you.